Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am really excited to have my next guest. I have Tiger here with me. We got connected on Clubhouse. And just the conversation regarding self development, insights for being a better version of yourself is kind of how I would describe the conversations that we were a part of on Clubhouse. And so I'm really excited to dive into some of those type of topics this morning. But before we do so, I want to give Tiger the opportunity to introduce himself.
Well, thank you so much. It's fun to connect here after a few months of not talking. And yeah, my approach is really sharing what I see within what I am, kind of looking at the human experience from a direct experience, and then just sharing that. And I feel like my offering is more about poetry than it is about teaching anything. It's like saying, here's what I see that's really beautiful, and I'm going to share it. And if it resonates, great. If not, no worries. And there's sort of a spiritual vibe to what I share. And I mean spiritual in a way that if you look at all of the spiritual traditions, in some way or another, we're looking to connect with something more loving on the inside of what we are. We're looking to live more in the present moment and really honoring and celebrating the life that we've been given, rather than operating from a space of fear about yesterday or about the future. And so everything that I share is along those lines in some way.
I love that. Now, you said sharing what you see from where you are.
Yeah.
Now, for many people, that is a hard thing to do because they feel like people are not going to appreciate what they have to share, or they feel rejected. So how did you get the courage to be able to do that? Because for a lot of people, that's could be a game changer.
Yeah, and this is fun to go into. What it comes down to is being sincere. And I find that in my own journey, what I crave most is the freedom to just be myself. And that's moving in sincerity. And when I find that I don't, it hurts. And so here's the option. I can be insincere and try and get your approval, or I can let go of your approval and be sincere, and that feels better than trying to get something from someone. And then also what I recognized is that my sharing or my sincerity is very much like a painting, that when you paint something, the observer sees their own painting. They see what they see. They don't really see my painting. And so I'm painting for the sake of play and joy and creativity because it's what I enjoy. And then I extend a freedom for everyone to see what they see because nobody actually sees my painting. They just see their own.
I love that. Now,
Yeah,
can you explain that? Because, it's kind of like I was in a room one day and somebody shared something very vulnerable. And normally most people are like, well, we appreciate you sharing. But a lot of times when people do that, we begin to examine in our own life what we did, how we would act. If that was us, it becomes this inner reflection if you are in that mindset, I believe. I mean, there might be some people that judge, but I think a lot of times people do that inner work when people share. So how did you come to that realization? Because was that something that you've always felt, or wasn't it experience that led you to that?
It's really the pain of not being sincere, the pain of not allowing myself to be myself. It's like something in me feels like it just wants to die. It's like if I can't be myself, I don't want to be alive, because then I'm just running around pretending to be what everybody else wants me to be, and that's painful. And so it's really the pain that brought me to that reflection where it's like, okay, if I'm going to be here, if I'm going to be alive, I might as well be what I am and let everyone see what they see. It's like,
Mhm.
if people like it, great. If they don't, great. It still has nothing to do with me. It's
Mhm.
really like letting go of
Mhm.
everyone and saying, I don't need you to like me. I can
Mhm.
love you regardless. It's like, I can appreciate you being you without needing you to validate my experience.
Right. I mean, that's a big thing because,
Yeah.
for years, I struggled with that validation piece. And I don't know if it's just your upbringing, the way you deal with school or whatever, but what was it that really, we talk about it's the pain, but what was a moment that you can possibly go back to identify where you were able to let go of that validation?
Yeah, one moment that stands out is in my early 20s. I must have been 20 or 21, but I was homeless at the time,
Mhm.
living in my car, kind of bouncing around from couch to couch. And I remember reflecting on all the blame that I had. It
Mm.
was like, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. If only they weren't like this, then I could be like this. Like, all of this judgment and blame being projected outward,
Mhm.
essentially not taking accountability for my experience. And then I had asked, well, what if it's no one's fault? What if this is just the life that I'm creating? What if this is just me? And in that was a great letting go, just the
Mhm.
openness to the possibility that no one needs to be blamed, including myself.
Mhm.
And I started to recognize that this life isn't about what I thought it was about. The conditioning, the upbringing told me that this
Mhm.
life was about being approved of, was
Mhm.
about fitting in, being validated and being seen by the world.
Mhm.
And that's just such a disaster. It's like, if I want the world to accept me, I have to be what the world wants me to be in
Mhm.
order to get that acceptance,
Right.
which says I can't be what I am. And
Mm.
so my strategy in being accepted by the world means I have to reject myself, which comes with the
Mhm.
constant mental noise of, you're not enough. You need to be like this. You need to be like that.
Mhm.
And, all of that's super painful. And so, I mean, that one lesson when I was 20 is the same lesson I'm always running into, an
Mhm.
opportunity to come home and see what it is that I'm really looking for. And
Mhm.
ultimately, what I'm really looking for is just permission to be myself. And then when I don't have that permission, when I don't give it to myself, I become violent in some way. It's like I
Mhm.
start blaming other people. I start
Mhm.
withholding love, all because I think that I'm not enough,
Mm.
which means I'm not seeing myself clearly.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, and there's, 1,001 of those experiences. As far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned, it's the fundamental lesson
Mm.
to see ourselves more clearly.
I love that. And so, the freedom is really the thing that comes with being in alignment with yourself. There's so many different things, like you said, you notice blaming others, or, I read this quote, I can't quite remember what it was, but sometimes when you are not true to yourself, you start a war inside. So
Mhm.
whether you're not speaking up to other people, but the war begins to be within yourself, this internal conflict.
Yeah, it's
So,
like you don't allow yourself to breathe.
right.
And it's like, if you hold your breath, sooner or later you're going to start to die.
Mhm.
And your sincerity is like the breath of life. It's what's true, it's what's felt. And if you don't
Mhm.
allow that to be expressed or seen, then something in you starts to feel like it's going to die.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love how you talk about the painting because that is so true. Or another thing I would add to that is that the painting gets better because other people contribute. And so it
Mhm.
begins to really be a quick masterpiece from everybody being their true selves,
Yeah.
creating this masterpiece, you
And
know?
it's real art.
Yeah.
And
So
there's such diversity in art, and in human beings there's such diversity. People are this way, people are that way, and there's a real beauty to it all.
good. Now, so what are some things that you do in your routine to kind of help you maintain this mindset? Because, we have like, well, you're in Sweden, but here in the United States and different places all over the world, we're affected by this pandemic. Then, there's racial injustices and, age injustices. I mean, there's a number of things that are going on with people trying to reinvent themselves. They've been on in careers for long periods of time. Now that's uprooted or disrupted, and they can't work like they used to, and all these different isms. How do you keep yourself grounded and focused in spite of all these things happening?
Well, most directly, and from my own experience, I see it all as noise.
Mm,
And I can put my attention on it and get wrapped up in the noise.
mhm,
Or I can pay attention to what's really happening in my present moment experience. And that's what I can touch. I can touch the reality of my present moment experience. And so in that, and as I mentioned, some people are this way and some people are that way. And I'm not a person of routine. It doesn't work for me. I'm
mm,
much more of a flow person.
mhm,
So I wake up and I see what happens.
mhm,
I see where the inspiration is. I see what's moving inside of me. Uh, and that can look all sorts of ways. It's like even in my offering, I will have a structure of what I offer. It's like, okay, every time at this time of the day, I'm going to do this for my audience. But that can change at any moment. If I'm not interested in that anymore, then I'll do something else or I'll do nothing. And it's the time
mhm,
for nothing. And so I really embrace the sincerity of my own flow
mm,
rather than holding an expectation over myself that says I have to be this way or I have to be that way.
mm.
Because really, really, I don't.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so, for people who are like control oriented,
Yeah.
it's like you got to do A to get B. What advice would you give them about being in flow? I mean, I kind of have those days where I'm a prayer person. So I get up in the morning, I get like a download, in
Yep.
terms of reading a verse and, writing things down. And, that can set me up for the whole week,
Yeah.
or, I get an assignment. It's like going into a clubhouse room that I don't know anything about, but I'm just led to go in there and something happens to really cause momentum to go in my week. But for other people who are like, I have to be a part of this and, got to follow the plan, what advice would you give them about being able to kind of incorporate more flow?
I would get incredibly and radically honest with yourself
Mhm.
about what you're looking for.
Mm,
Because I find that the more we get honest, the more we recognize that we already have what we want. And when you see that nothing's missing, control isn't necessary.
mm,
We control because we're afraid of not getting what we want. And when you see that you already have what you want, there's this relaxation and enjoyment that goes with a natural flow.
mm,
And then also in that flow, there's sort of this, what we might call a divine guidance
mhm,
that takes you where you need to go in order for life to do what life needs to do. It's almost like my life isn't my own. And so I allow life to guide me. It's
mm,
like I'm here in service to the heart of life, so to speak.
mhm,
And so this journey is about following that path rather than racing towards a future that I think is the right future. It's like, let's trust that to life and see what life wants to do because life has been here quite a long time and knows what it's doing. And what I've recognized in my inquiry is that all of my chasing was really trying to chase an image of myself. I was
mm,
trying to be seen a certain way. I was trying to be validated. I was trying to get something in the world. I was like trying to be important
mhm,
and it was exhausting and I never got there. And when I thought I got there, I found out that I didn't get there.
So
And so, it was this constant quest of going nowhere.
mm,
And in recognizing that, it's like, well, if I'm going nowhere, I might as well just enjoy where I am. And
mm,
then in that is a flow where you get surprised. You get surprised by what life is doing. It's like inspiration.
mhm,
If you look at all of the really beautiful things you enjoy in life, they're not things that you can plan. They're spontaneous,
mm,
and they arise from a space of being open. It's like,
mhm,
let's be open to this. It's like nobody has a beautiful connection with another human being because they put it on their calendar and said, okay,
mhm,
next Tuesday I'm going to have a surprise connection. No, it's so much more spontaneous and magical than that. And
mhm.
so my invitation again is to kind of look beyond all this noise in the mind and really open up to the magic of being alive.
That was just amazing. So now, did you come to more clarity with this pandemic? How did this change you in some way? And I don't know now. Did Sweden ever start with a lockdown or anything like that? Um,
No, they've had suggested guidelines.
mm-hmm,
Um, but again, and I'm out in the country, so I'm not like in a city or anything. And even when I visit the city, there's not much evidence of a of a pandemic.
mm-hmm,
But that's not to say that there are other people in Sweden having a very difficult time
mm-hmm,
as they experience a pandemic.
mm,
Because granted, before COVID, I traveled a lot and did events and retreats and things like that.
mm-hmm,
And that ended, so that
mm-hmm,
was a big change. But also, what I recognized, not just with COVID, but with everything, I have to ask myself, am I experiencing this or am I experiencing how I see it?
mm,
Am I experiencing what's happening or am I experiencing the meaning that I'm giving it? And this is really, really profound because so often we think that we are experiencing something out there. Really, we're experiencing our own painting. It's
mm,
like when I paint something, is somebody experiencing my painting or are they experiencing their own creation? And so in this, everyone's free to experience the pandemic however they want. But the question is, what are you experiencing?
mm. That's deep.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it
how
really
you
is.
see it or how you, give meaning to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
that's so true because that's a really profound question to ask somebody who has been seeing this pandemic through the eyes of the media.
exactly.
Yeah, because I don't watch the news.
Yeah. Through the eyes of media or through the eyes of your Facebook feed. It's like that's
So
the
true.
same.
Or
Yeah.
through your own eyes. I mean, that
Yeah.
is just really profound.
And
That
what I recognize, it's kind of like when you go to the cinema, you're staring at a blank canvas that
Mhm,
has a movie projected onto it.
mm,
And behind the movie, there's nothing really happening. But
mhm,
it looks like there's something happening because there's a movie being projected. And
mm,
if you look at the dynamic is you have a blank screen and then you have a projector that's
mhm,
projecting an image. Now, the projector thinks that it's looking at something on the outside. It
mhm,
says, look, there's a movie, but the projector doesn't see that it's coming from inside the projector. And so
mm.
the projector is literally looking at its inside, but it thinks it's on the outside. And when you start to see that everything you're experiencing is actually what's on the inside, then you're not afraid of the movie. It's
That
it's
now
a
that
it's what's referred to as the cosmic mirror. That life is a reflection that shows you what's happening on the inside. And then as you start to heal the inside, then the outside looks dramatically different.
that is profound.
It is.
Yeah, that was really a good example. So, tell us some books that you're reading that could possibly inspire somebody with this
Oh
Mindset.
goodness. I don't know. I'm not really a book reader.
Oh, you're not? What about podcasts or anything like that? Or
My podcast.
oh, okay.
I've got a couple podcasts that are updated sporadically. Um, but really, I can't give a destination
Mm-hmm.
that says read this or listen to this. It really is a self-sincerity issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're open, then life will show a way. And
Mm-hmm.
so rather than racing towards a solution, let's just be open and then see where the guidance flows.
Mm-hmm.
And then, one person might read a book that makes sense to another person sounds absurd. It's like a lot of the things that I talk about might sound like nonsense to somebody else. And then to somebody
Right.
else, it's life changing. And so, again, it's just openness.
Yeah. Now, so tell us about your podcast.
Well, I've got two, and I guess depending on when people listen, this could all change at any
Mm-hmm.
moment. But I have one podcast that's called Tiger Singleton's Insight Clips and Wisdom Highlights, where
Mm-hmm.
I take 1 to 4 minute clips of my content as just short little reminders that people can listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another one called Community Explorations, Self Inquiry, Meditation, Conscious Observation. Super long name. And those are a combination of guided meditations and then the audio version of live videos that I do, where I just share insight and wisdom.
That's
And
good.
so, yeah, and I think if you just search Tiger Singleton on any podcast player, then something will come up.
Now, so, there's just power in names, and words are intentional. So, talk to us about the title, how, the name and why those things were included in the title.
Well, the self-inquiry, meditation, and conscious observation, I guess, might be more of a play on keywords.
Mhm.
But that's fundamental in my sharing, that there's this playful process of looking inward, the self-inquiry,
Mhm.
seeing what's actually true rather than what you imagine to be true. And
Mm.
then meditation, which is dropping into that truth, like being still and knowing. And then the conscious observation is to look at life through those new eyes. It's
Mhm.
like be willing to look beyond your projection
Mm.
and see what's really there. And for me, that's where life really transforms. It's like we remove the filter and
Mhm.
you look and you see something brand new. It's kind of like looking in the mirror.
Mhm.
Most people, when they look at them in the mirror, they're just seeing their mental commentary, right? Like their judgments and their stories.
Mhm.
They're not really seeing the beautiful creature, right? That's in the mirror.
Mhm.
And when you remove the filter, you start to fall in love with what you're looking at because everything
Mhm.
becomes very innocent and beautiful.
Mhm. That's good. Now, so, with this filter, and I definitely we all, and you say filter, I say mask, okay?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
live behind a lot of them. So, what were some of the key things that kind of help you get rid of that filter?
Well, we'll come back to the radical self-honesty.
Mhm.
And I say self-honesty, not
Mhm.
honesty like to other people, but just being honest with myself. Um, and I started to recognize how violent my filter was.
Mm.
And that violence essentially said, I'll love you if. And for
Mm.
me, that's violent, saying, don't be what you are, and then I'll love you.
Mm.
And if I say I love you if, I'm also saying I don't love you right now.
Mhm.
Be what I want you to be, and then I'll love you.
Mhm.
Um, and that was kind of the root of the filter, was kind of seeing other people as in my way from me getting to the future, seeing people as enemies, seeing people as obstacles,
Mhm.
and even seeing life that way.
Mhm.
And so that filter was very destructive because it just pushes love away. It
Mhm.
says change and then I'll love you. And the thing about love is it's experienced when it's allowed to flow. And so
Mhm.
if I'm not allowing love to flow, I don't experience love. And
Mhm.
in some way, we can say that that's the source of what we crave. We crave love.
Mhm.
And the love that I crave is the love that's inside of me waiting to be seen. It's
Mm.
like there's a love that's waiting to be shared.
Mhm.
And that's the love that I crave, is a love that
Mhm.
will flow through what I am and be shared with the world. But I don't allow it to flow when I see things as in the way, which is to
Mm.
misunderstand what I'm seeing. So it's like I'm just seeing my own confusion. That's what I
Mm.
consider the filter. It distorts reality. And as soon as you remove the filter and see reality clearly, you can't find an appropriate reason for withholding love.
Mm. That is so true. Now, so this filter was why did you have a filter? Was it thinking that you were protecting yourself, or what was the mindset with having the filter in the first place?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the protection mechanism, and it's so ingrained in our conditioning. Like
Mm.
we are born into a culture of fear that
Mhm.
dramatically misunderstands what's really happening.
Mhm.
And so we take on that misperception and we try and manage our lives with it. And it's ultimately a disaster.
Mm.
But the filter was trying to protect my own ego, essentially.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
trying to protect who I think I am,
Mhm.
not realizing that who I think I am is completely imaginary. It doesn't give
Mhm.
me anything. It's not real. Um, it's associated with a dream, right? It's who I
Mhm.
dream myself to be.
Mhm.
And when I see how imaginary it is, it doesn't need to be protected.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And it's like, I tell people now when I give them advice about confidence is that,
Mhm.
you know, you have two conversations. You have one going on in your head, and then you have one with the person in front of you. And
Mhm.
sometimes the one in your head is like, should I say this? What are they going to think? It's that negative uh, side. And, you can get so engrossed with this conversation as if it's really real and
Yeah.
not even have a conversation with the person in front of you.
Yeah. That's adorable.
Yeah. So that is really profound that you would say that.
Mm.
So this has just been a great, great, great conversation. So much resonates. It's like really being able to hear some of my own experiences in the words of somebody else. So questions. How important are questions now with your
They are absolutely important and absolutely irrelevant. A great paradox. Let me put it this way. If the question is sincere,
Mhm.
then it's important. And then beyond that, the questions don't matter. And
Mhm.
when I go out and do retreats or events, I tell people that there's this game that we're going to play, which is that we're going to pretend that I'm a teacher and we're going to pretend that you're a student,
Mhm.
and you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to pretend to have an answer. But what I want you to recognize is that you're not really looking for the answer. You're looking for the stillness that comes.
Mhm.
And so it's like this. Somebody asks me a question and they say, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And I give them an answer and they say, oh, everything's okay. Do you see that? It's like when you get
Mhm.
an answer that touches the heart, you
Mhm.
realize that there's a wellness. Now,
Mhm.
if you believe my answer, then you'll believe the next question. And the questions are infinite.
Mm.
You can ask questions until you die. But the
Mhm.
truth is in the stillness. It's in trusting that there's no question. And so it's like trusting that the mind doesn't really have the answer.
Mm.
And so we have to go to a place that isn't filled with thought. We have to get still inside of ourselves and see what's real beyond the mind's imagination.
Now that is good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is good. I love that. The mind doesn't really know the answer.
Mm-mm.
That
The,
is
the mind
so,
only has what's been put inside of it.
yes. That hey, that's $1 million answer right there.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to like, how have you grown in terms of hard conversations, hard topics? We have a lot of people who, you know, um, you could be a spokesperson, well, you're, of color. So tell us your thoughts and all these kind of things when it comes to having some of those difficult conversations. How has your own flow allowed you to kind of embrace and talk about those subjects differently?
You know, I think in many ways it comes down to a profound freedom to not have those conversations uh,
Mhm.
if I don't feel a resonance.
Mm,
Um, because oftentimes people can ask me questions and I can see that they're not in a space that's really looking for sincerity. It's like
mhm,
they're wanting to be right and they want me to validate their rightness or they're wanting to argue.
mhm,
And so it's like we're not really looking for the truth, right? We're
mhm,
looking to support our ego here.
mhm,
And there's a freedom to not engage
mm,
and allow people to, think what they think. And
mm,
it's like knowing that the truth can't be found in the mind. I know that there's no talking to get to the truth.
mhm,
It's like if the heart isn't there, then there's really no point.
mhm,
Um, and so that's what I feel into in those times. It's like, is this conversation even necessary?
mhm,
Now, in a place of me trying to survive my own ego or to be this or be that, then
mhm,
I could see myself constantly wanting to have those conversations to
mhm,
prove myself as right.
mhm.
But again, it's just a game I'm not interested in playing.
So true. I
Mm,
mean, because the reality is, in some people's perception, good and evil coexists.
mhm.
So whatever path you choose to go on is your choice and what
Yeah.
comes that way. So that is awesome. Some great nuggets. I mean, I'm over here taking all kind of notes on the side, but this has been a wonderful conversation. So tell everybody the best way to get a hold of you. You've told us about your podcast, but what's the best way for them to reach out?
I would say go to my website,
Mm-hmm.
inlightconnect.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there you can find some free guided meditations and get plugged into my newsletter. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really the best way to stay updated. And I'm so unorganized in a traditional way in the way that I do things, and things change all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so if somebody really wants to be in the loop, then join my newsletter and hope for some updates via email.
I love that. Hey, being the true you, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Embracing it and going. That's great. So what final thoughts would you have for the audience today?
Let me say this. I love you, and if you're hurting, I'm sorry.
Mm,
I understand the difficulty in being human, and I have my own difficulties just like everyone else, but there really is a profound beauty in the totality of our humanness.
mm,
And fundamentally, the problem we have is we think something's wrong with us.
mm,
We think we're not enough.
mhm,
And if your heart is open to hear it, it's just not true. Even though, yes, I know it seems like it is. I know that the noise in the mind can be loud,
mhm.
but I just invite you to be soft. Be gentle with yourself. Allow the seasons to change, and open your heart to the possibility that life knows what it's doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tiger, for coming on today, and really, really appreciate your words of wisdom and insights. And you need to write a book,
Oh,
okay? 'Cause
I've got some.
you do have some books.
Yeah, there's some books out there on Amazon, mostly used copies because I took it down last year
Mm-hmm.
with the intent to make some changes, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So there's one called An Explosion of Love, The Color of All Things Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You can find that on Amazon, and there's others, but I don't know if you can find them. But again, join my email list, and so when they do come out, you'll know.
Awesome. Well, this has just been great. So we really appreciate all your insights. And for those of you watching, I encourage you to reach out to Tiger. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We'll be sure to forward them over to him. And in the meantime, we just want to thank you so much for joining us today. And if something resonated with you, take action. Don't just sit there in your own mind with the noise, but come out of that noise, have a conversation that can really help you to be the best version of yourself. So we thank you for watching, and share this video. Share it to others who you feel may really have resonated with this message, because it definitely was very profound and insightful. So thank you again, Tiger, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now.